This time I was smart enough to reserve a car in El Calafate before I got there. However, I still had no campsite and had no idea where I was going.
Seriously, can you believe the piece of shit drive down this dirt road?
This is again where a total lack of planning can come back to bite you.
And I'm driving kind of blind down this road. There says there's a sign for a campground. I don't know what I can expect. If they're gonna have water, if they're gonna have services, they're gonna have food, nothing. So if there was ever an award for stupidity and lack of planning, I'd win it. But it's kind of par for the course for me, and I guess that's why I have pretty good adventures. Sometimes for the better, sometimes for the worse, but you never know what to expect.
One of the things that I'd heard a lot about, but that I was totally unprepared for, was the wind.
And I'm trying to deal with the wind. The camera blew over once. I'm sitting here ready to pounce. It blows over my head. Whoa! Now you can see what I'm talking about.
It is a windy, windy place, unlike any place I've ever been in my life.
It's the second time this has happened. The wind is really howling out here. I've got about 71 kilometers to go to get to the Perrito Moreno Glacier, and I have no idea if there's even campgrounds there. Otherwise, it's about 150, 170 more to go to reach the national park, El Chaltén. And if it's after dark, it might be pretty tricky finding a place to stay. But I just didn't like the feel of the city of El Calafate. It just didn't seem safe to me traveling alone with all this equipment. We'll see what happens. Be an adventure no matter what. Driving with a cracked windshield that I can barely see out of. The scenery's just spectacular. If only I could see out of this cracked windshield. And I'm still hoping that this doesn't just collapse on me. I assume it's tempered glass, but they say in Latin America, nunca se sabe. You can't expect anything to be what you'd find in the United States. Whether it's safety, convenience, doesn't matter what. Things have a way of surprising you here.
So there I was, driving down a gravel road with a map that didn't serve much purpose and a death trap of a car.
Another thing that takes some getting used to are the cars down here. This thing is basically a go-kart with a Chevy label on it. No power steering, no airbags, no suspension. It's a death trap, but I hope you all can appreciate how dangerous this is. Holding the camera in one hand and driving it with the other. This is a Darwin Award waiting to happen, but hopefully if I do crash, the tape will survive.
I was really worried this was going to end up in a really bad way.
It's the only thing more dangerous than filming while driving. Filming yourself reading while driving.
But, as usual, things worked out. There was a campground at the end of the road, and it was a good campground. Remote place for me to set up my tent, which I was able to do in the waning hours. There was a place for me to make a fire using the firewood that they had at the campsite. I convinced the lady inside to make me a pizza. I bought a bottle of Malbec and got some water, and I spent the night in the backdrop of the Andes Mountains having an awesome time by myself.
Just that simple. Once it starts crackling, you know you're in business. Well, you know I was driving around. I'd considered roughing it. Past one campsite without services in favor of this one on Lago Roca with a view of the glacier. Convinced a nice lady inside to make me a special pizza and a nice bottle of Malbec wine. Now I was really going to try to rough it, but I guess what it really comes down to is, and with all due respect to Bear Grylls, there's a big difference between knowing how to really survive out here and knowing how to really live. There are a lot worse places to be. And this pizza is a lot better than eating raw bugs. You've probably noticed that Jordan Brother number 2 is conspicuously absent from these affairs. It was really a two-person job, but my brother bailed on me and went to the Dominican Republic with our parents instead. I think he would have really enjoyed this. Fortunately, he couldn't come with me on this trip, and you know, I've been thinking about him a lot because I really enjoy our adventures together.
He talks with his hands, I'm telling you.
You're also rocking. However, this is the one time of the night where I'm really glad that he's not here, because although this is supposed to be a two-person tent, if he were here, we'd be sleeping butts to nuts, and I'm glad I have the tent to myself.